call this council and committee meeting to order. Before we start, I want to begin the meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas of the New Credit, and the Anishinaabe people. Madam Clerk, the roll call, please.
All members of council are present, Your Worship.
There is no addendum this evening, and there are no announcements, but Councillor McDermott, I understand that you wanted to make an announcement with respect to the Smile Cookies initiative of Tim Hortons.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. It is Smile Cookie Week at Tim Hortons, and where 100% of proceeds from the sale of Smile Cookies go to benefit organizations within the community. Stephen Passero would like me to mention that the proceeds from the Fort Erie and Crystal Beach stores will be going to the Kinsman Pool. And he would like to thank Rick Strong for his generosity and to tell the community that this week it's absolutely okay to eat cookies at breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, there is one notice of an upcoming public meeting, and that's a public information open house with respect to the installation of a wireless telecommunications facility by Canadian Niagara Power, Inc. at 1130 Bertie Street. The open house is Tuesday, September the 24th, 2019 at 5 p.m. here in the Town Hall atrium. There are no public meetings this evening. We have a consent agenda. Does anyone wish any of the items in the consent agenda removed? If not, can I have a mover for the consent agenda? Councillor Dubanow. Are there any questions or comments with respect to any of the items? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. I had spoken with our CAO prior to the meeting, and I called him earlier. And the question I had was why the Environmental Advisory Committee was not listed as a stakeholder.
This is with respect to report PDS 52.
52-2019.
Mr. Cookett. Or should this be directed to Mr. Brady?
No, I'll answer that through your worship to Councillor Lubberts. That's an oversight on our part. We should have listed the EAC as one of the stakeholders on that report. I'll make sure that gets caught in the future.
Thank you very much. So when the report comes forward, will that also be reviewed by EAC?
Who's running the process here, Mr. Cookett? Is it?
Mr. Brady, if you want to answer that, but typically this, I don't believe, would be circulated to them, but I'll let Mr. Brady answer that.
Mr. Brady?
Mr. Cookett is correct. This matter is a technical report which will be provided to council to deal with these industrial lands. We don't typically send that to EAC. If council directs us to do so, we will, but we wouldn't normally do that.
Councillor Lubberts?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. So I'm assuming that none of the other stakeholders will be receiving the report either.
In advance of when
Or
we
after,
get it?
when they get the report, when the report is done.
Well, I think when the report's completed, there will probably be
Circulated to
provision that it be
everybody,
circulated
right?
to the stakeholders. Mr. Brady, is that correct? When the report is finally completed and presented to council, it would likely then, if approved by council, be circulated to the stakeholders?
As part of the this process, the report would be circulated to the stakeholders after council has approved any result of it. Yes.
And that would include EAC at this point,
It wouldn't normally, but it can.
okay?
It will?
It can. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Well, that's why I asked the question. Why
Okay.
aren't, and Mr. Cook had said that it was an oversight that they would be listed, so.
Why don't you move that they be included in the list of stakeholders?
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that? Everybody understand what the amendment is? All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. So, Mr. Brady, that will be now included. Any other comments, Councillor Lubberts, about any of the reports in the consent agenda? Anyone else? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. On the same report, PDS 52 to 2019, I'm just wondering for the award contract for that particular area, has that area ever been assessed before? Is this the first assessment?
Mr. Brady?
Through to the councillor, this area is being assessed over a 2-year period, the same area, so that there was work that was completed last year, and there'll be work that's completed this year. And as a result of all of that work, there will be a report that will come to council on the possibility of redesignating some of these lands.
Thank you. I have a further question on the IS 31 2019, the water meter replacement program. For those of us, me included, who have not had their water meter exchanged yet, what should we expect?
Mr. Walsh?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a few stragglers, we'll call them, in the residential system. We hope to get the rest of them through the year. That will be with our own forces, though.
Thank you. I'm one of them.
Okay,
So,
noted, Councillor.
and I also have a question on the CS 08 2019. I did have a chance to talk to Mr. Jansen about this. I was happy to hear that on page 2 of 33, it does talk about wastewater revenues, that basically the water consumption is down, which is kind of what we want for conservation, and that unfortunately that leads to a decrease in the budget. But the thing that impressed me more was that we had a very wet year. And usually when we have a wet year, if I can recall, usually we would have a lot more extraneous flow and there would be a lot more water that was being treated and stuff that basically was coming from cracks and things in our system. So the fact that even though we had a very wet spring and I think the beginning of summer, it's actually down. So I think that perhaps reflects positively some of the work that we are doing, that we are reducing the extraneous flow. It's unfortunate that's not reflecting, and again, I understand why it can't, because some of our costs are fixed in in what's anticipated for next year in regards to water and waste management, and the cost for this is going to go up. But I'm happy to see that there is some conservation happening, and we are seeing some benefit of all the work we've done. Thank you.
Jansen, do you or Mr. Walsh want to make any comments, follow up on Councillor Noyes' comments?
Sure. Through you to Councillor, it is early in the year in terms of it being Q2 to project out to the end of the year, and while that variance is a forecast for all costs, net of treatment costs. So certainly we are happy and are believing that we're on the right track with seeing a reduction in infiltration due to a lot of the projects we have undertaken. We will see how that plays out for the rest of the year.
Mr. Walsh? Not mandatory, but if you wish.
No, I have no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Then I'll call the question on the reports in the consent agenda. All those in favor, including the report that was amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That was a late in favor. You voted twice. Oh, okay. Okay, you're just getting into the swing of things for the federal election, I guess. Okay. Okay, that takes us into Planning and Development Services, and that is you, Councillor Noyes.
Planning and Development Services is in session. There are no presentations and delegations. There are no reports. That brings us to new business inquiries. Seeing none, that brings us to the business status report. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Planning and Development Services is now closed, and I'll send it back to the mayor.
Well done, Councillor Noyes. That takes us to Infrastructure Services, and that would be you, Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Infrastructure Services is now in session. We have no presentations or delegations, and we'll move on to the report IS 32-2019, point out all high water levels. Have a move.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Redekop. Any comments or questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. I know over the last several months, we've had a lot of emails back and forth from the people who live in this area and the problem that they're having with their, with the extreme, with the overland water and things like that, from the high water table. And I'm just wondering, do we have any, and I know it was referred to somewhere in here, but any idea how the septic systems are performing? I know we're asking for more information on that, but do we have any information currently on that?
Yeah, Mr. Walsh, is there any, we're hearing stories that we're pumping raw sewage into the lake because of the septic systems. Do you have any further information on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I have not heard that story before. With respect to the functioning of individual septic systems, we haven't been monitoring them. We have early in this, when this issue came forth, we did contact Region Public Health, who do monitor septic systems, and they had no concerns at that time. From the way I understand it, unless there is an exposed septic bed, they will perform even underwater.
Okay, thank you. Any further, Councillor Noyes?
Yes, on the same report, another question in regards to, it refers to improving the ditching, and it refers to, and I'm assuming that is going to go before the, our big plan to do all the ditches. That's going to be preemptive, basically, to deal with the current problem. I know we're doing a study on the ditching throughout town.
Mr. Walsh?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. We are doing our rural ditching master plan, but we do have specific areas, this included, that can do some immediate remedial work, but still be included within the plan itself.
And thank you for that explanation. One further question. It was, I think, referring to something about working with Port Colborne. Is that referring to one of the drains that they are doing? And that some of these costs may be moved on to that report once that's given? I wasn't quite clear on what that was.
Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the Point Abano drain has been awarded by the City of Port Colborne to an engineering firm for drainage report. Port Colborne has the higher elevation in the drain. They are the initiating municipality in this process, so they'll be guiding that. They are very aware of the issues that are occurring out here and have fast-tracked the process as much as possible with a drainage report.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Noyes.
Again, thank you for that explanation. I'm just curious, it says staff will seek to recoup costs attributed to the municipal drain through the newly initiated engineer's report being undertaken. We can do this before the fact and then add it to the tally of the drain itself?
Mr. Walsh?
And through you, Mr. Chair. So we have incurred costs out there that staff believe can be attributed to the maintenance of the drain itself. We will hold those costs and include them as part of the drainage study so that when the final assessment comes out, they may be considered. I don't know if they'll be included or not. I think that's got to go through the process. We're loath to issue the cost to the benefiting landowners right now. The last drainage report we had is almost 30 years old, I believe, and the assessment schedule in the back of those is woefully out of date. For us to assess the cost right now, we would almost have to reproduce our own drainage report.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Redekop?
Yes, so just turning to page 5, table 1, which shows the elevations of the drain and the lake. And it shows a comparative reduction in both during the period of pumping of about the same amount. But am I reading this correctly if I come to the conclusion that on September the 11th, the drain was still lower than the lake? The outlet of the drain was still lower than the lake?
Mr. Walsh?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, you read that correctly, Mr. Mayor, but you'll note that if you look at Figure 1, which corresponds to the table, the light blue line on the bottom of the figure is the drain elevation at Point Abano, and the two darker lines above it are the lake elevations. We do have fluctuations in the lake elevation, but that difference between the lake levels, if you can infer a trending line there, is fairly constant.
So the, if I might, Mr. Chair, so the replacement of the flood gate, whatever it's called, that's supposed to deal with situations where the lake level is higher than the actual outlet?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The flap gates and the sandbags we have installed in there right now are preventing lake surges from flowing back into the drain. The flap gates are not meant for a long-term flood control. Eventually, they would hold the lake back, but eventually the water behind the gates in the Point Abano drain would raise to level equivalent to the lake. So they're meant to stop the storm surges which occur quite frequently in this area.
And if I might, Mr. Chair, so the flap gate is to be installed soon?
Yes, it's being refurbished right now. As soon as we get an opportunity with the completion of the refurbishment and suitable conditions down at the foot of the drain, it will be installed. We're hoping it's done before the end of November, but certainly as soon as possible.
And what's the relationship between that and the removal of the sandbags?
Once the gates are installed, the sandbags will be removed.
And in the meantime, if the sandbags are there, is any water getting out of the drain into the lake, even if the lake were to become lower, lake level were to become lower than the drain?
If the lake level were to be lower than the drain, there are some gaps in the sandbags that would allow water out, but at a minimal rate. Our pumping would likely remove more water from the drain than could leak out through the sandbags.
This report, if I might, Mr. Chair, recommends that the pumping cease. So if this were approved, will the town staff continue to be monitoring the lake level, the outlet level, to ensure that if the lake levels drop and there's opportunity for the drain to be further reduced, that will happen?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. That brings us to Report IS 33-2019, the update for the 40 transit routes. Moved by Councillor McDermott. Any comments or questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. I do know that it's talking about the North Trail the north area is Stevensville, Black Creek. And I'm not against this. I think I see the empty buses going back and forth regularly, and I think that's, I understand if you're not using it, it's an expensive service if people aren't availing themselves of it. And I am happy that they're going to continue for a reduced level that. So I'm happy about that. I have a few questions regarding this, though, and I understand that we're looking at perhaps going to a smaller bus, which makes sense. And I'm hoping that if that comes to be, that we look at that smaller bus perhaps going into the leisure homes, like that Black Creek leisure home area, maybe not, I'm not talking going around it, but maybe into the parking lot of that, like through the gates, as opposed to the Black Creek Metalworks where it's stopping now, because I think some of the seniors have a hard time. I mean, I know it, maybe if you're driving, it doesn't seem that far, but if you're walking, it's a good it's a good trek to get the bus, and I'm hoping that more people will use it if it actually stops into Black Creek Leisure Homes thing. So I'm hoping that that would be looked at. The other thing is I know there's a few users. I know that they're regular users, and I'm hoping those few users that are using it will be told about this and to make sure it doesn't impede, their work schedule or anything else like that. I don't know who's using it, but I know there's a few regulars because when we closed Baker Road and we had to reroute the bus, I know I've received a few phone calls from people who were at a disadvantage then because they did use the bus. But I would imagine we probably looked at that. So that's all.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Walsh, do you have any comment on, I guess it's more, Councillor Noyes was wondering if there was any consideration of the smaller bus going at least to the parking lot? Is that under consideration too?
You have Jennifer Pinnell-Auger in the audience tonight. She's our administrator of the transit, but put words in her mouth here for a quick response. She did have a conversation with Councillor Noyes this afternoon. We are, on acceptance of this report, we will be engaging with a smaller bus, so I think that's an opportunity we can look into, certainly. With respect to notification, we have very effective communication with our transit users through website, social media, and hand notices on the bus itself. So the plan is to roll this out for November 4th, I believe. So we'll have plenty of time for effective communication.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if you could ask the director then if they considered just-in-time transit as opposed to a smaller bus. So it would be requested at the time that they need it in the Stevensville area. Mr.
Walsh?
We have looked briefly into on-demand transit. This route is certainly a candidate for it, given the sparse nature of the ridership. So we haven't looked into it formally, but it is something in the back of our minds. This contract expires about a year from now. We will be bringing a report forward shortly to council to seek approval to extend the contract just briefly. And that's due to the governance issues that are going on with all of the transit players in the region, St. Catharines, Welland, Niagara Falls, and us. And in how we move forward, there may be an opportunity for an amalgamated transit about maybe a year and a half, years from now. So until that governance report is set, we're going to hold off on that. The transit, Niagara Region, through the Intermunicipal Transit Working Group, is looking at on-demand service for some of the smaller municipalities, such as Stevensville, such as Port Colborne, Lincoln, Grimsby. That'll be discussed this Thursday.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the questions. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. That takes us to new business and inquiries. Any inquiries or any new business? Seeing none, we'll move to this business status report. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, infrastructure services is now in recess. I'll turn the chair back over to Mayor Redekop.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lubberts. That takes us into corporate and community services. Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Corporate and Community Services is now open. We have no presentations or delegations. We have a report, CS-09-2019-2020 budget planning and timetable. Do we have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Zanko. Any questions or comments? All right. Oh, Your Worship.
Just had one question, and it's small, but on page 8, under comments from relevant departments, there's a statement, the budget guidelines were prepared in collaboration with the CAO directors and board senior staff. Would that be like the library board and the museum board, that type of thing?
Mr. Cookett, would you be able to answer that? Or perhaps Jonathan? Or Mr. Jansen?
Yes, through you, the budget is compiled together with all of our partners, that being the library board. Certainly any kind of board and committee will be submitting their submissions to the town for review, the BIAs, all those types of local boards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? That's carried. So that moves us on to new business. Any matters of new business? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I received in my mailbox a little business card for a new taxi service that's in the area, and I was under the impression that you had to have a special license from the region. I'm wondering if I could pass that information over to you and check into it? Yeah? Okay.
Any other new business inquiries? All right, perfect. Moving on to business status reports. Any questions, comments? Your worship.
Just noticed that we were told this afternoon that there will be a report coming from the museum board relative to the train 6218 next month, I believe. It's not on the list here.
I recall that. Perhaps I'm going to go back to Mr. Cookett. Perhaps he could maybe fill in a little more on what's going on with that.
It should be on the list there from the reports coming forward.
Is that coming the first meeting or the second committee meeting in October?
I believe it's the second. I'm looking at the clerk, but I'm pretty sure it's the second.
Okay, thank you.
All right, perfect. Any other questions about the business status report? All right. I guess in that case, Corporate and Community Services is now closed. I'll return the chair to His Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. And that takes us then to scheduling of meetings. Councillor Zanko.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have an EDTC board meeting on Wednesday, September 18th at 5 p.m. at the EDTC.
Any other meetings? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m., we have a Transportation Steering Committee meeting up at Regional Headquarters in Council Chambers. That runs from 9:30 a.m. till about 11 or so, give or take. We also have a library board meeting tomorrow at 5:30 at the Centennial Library Branch in the boardroom.
Any other meetings? Councillor Noyes, sorry.
On the 24th, we have an accessibility committee meeting at 5 o'clock.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we have a Community in Blooms committee meeting, and then on the 18th, an Affordable Housing Committee meeting at 9:30 both here at the town.
Any other meetings? There being none, then Councillor Dubanow, would you like to move that we adjourn? Perfect. All those in favor? That surprisingly is unanimous.